Ready? Start. Madam Deputy Chairman, I rise to participate in this discussion not with a view to ventilate particular grievances or to secure concessions and relief in the taxation measures. I am one of those who believe that there is no justification for additional taxation unless the conditions laid down by the Taxation Inquiry Commission are complied with. It was a commission presided over by no less a person than Dr. John Mathai, one of our illustrious finance ministers, and it laid down that there was no justification for any additional taxation unless we complied with two or three conditions. One condition was that whatever tax was realized was being properly spent, that there was no wastage or superfluous expenditure being incurred. The Commission has pointed out that out of every rupee that was being raised by the government, 60 paise were being spent on administration and about 20 paise were being spent on social services including education, etc., and the balance for other things. Another was that whatever tax was being imposed should be realized before we brought out measures for fresh taxation. They also had suggested that there was sufficient room for economy in all the ministries and departments, and effective steps should be taken forthwith to enforce the maximum possible economy in government expenditure. Now we have before us this audit report for 1996-62, which was presented to the Lok Sabha on the 6th June and which came to my hands last night, and I have not been able to study it. I find that during the last 5 years we have imposed additional taxation, and at the same time our revenue expenditure has gone up by about rupees 42 crores. So on the other hand, we say that we are raising this money, these taxes, for the implementation of the plan, and for that reason every chief minister and ministers go about saying that we want money for the implementation of the plan. But what are the facts? We find that the money that has been raised is being used for administrative purposes. So it is not correct to say that on the other hand it is no proper, because you must know that no plan, however well balanced and well thought out it may be, can be implemented in a democratic setup unless you can enthusiasm the people. Madam Deputy Chairman, I rise to participate in this discussion not with a view to ventilate particular grievances or to secure concessions and relief in the taxation measures. Ready? Start. Mr. Vice Chairman, knowing the honorable member of this resolution to be a good parliamentarian, I had expected that he would place before the House all sides of this problem. I had expected that he would be no less interested in the efficiency and discipline of the administration, no less interested in the public welfare than in the interest of the civil services. But I am sorry to observe that he has taken only one view of the matter, namely the interests of the civil services alone. He has not at all dwelt upon the frightful consequences which strike of the sort we had the misfortune to have would have had on the country and the people in general. He has spoken, no doubt, in measured tones, unlike the honorable member who cited to his right in the morning and who raised a shout wanting to make up by sound what his arguments lacked in force. I wish to submit to this House that it would be incorrect and it would be imprudent for this House to accept this resolution. It would be incorrect because by accepting this resolution we would be laying down something bad in principle, and we would also be accepting a policy which would be suicidal and which would cut at the roots of discipline in the services. To the merits of reinstatement or otherwise of these persons I will come later on. I doubt the very propriety of Parliament going into this matter. Now let us see what has happened. Whether right or wrong, departments have taken up the question of these strikers. Those who took part in this strike, those who indulged in disobeying the ordinance, several cases of sabotage and intimidation, including criminal ones, have been gone into, and the authorities have taken some decision. In some cases, the government have taken the decision, and in some cases, the departments have taken the decision. Now, would it be right for Parliament to intervene, to interfere with these decisions? Suppose we do that? Suppose Parliament interfered with the decisions taken by the government or by the heads of departments tomorrow. With what face and with what authority can the head of a department extract service from his subordinates? This is the question which the Honorable, the mover, must see, and also the other honorable members who have spoken in support of the resolution. We start. We have been depending either on foreign aid or on indirect taxation or deficit financing, and more than once I have pointed out that these measures will not help to enthuse the people, and unless the people are enthused, we will not have any successful results so far as planning is concerned. Now it is necessary, it is time that we should take stock of the situation, for we have had 14 years of freedom and 12 years of democratic rule and a planned economy. What are the results? I am not one of those who minimize our achievements. We have had some achievements which are remarkable, of which we can be proud. We have had 3 general elections, and we can be proud of all this. But it is equally true that the expectations of the people remain mostly unfulfilled. They remain unrealized. What are the expectations of the people? They wanted an adequate supply of drinking water. They wanted a little more wholesome food in their stomachs, a little more clothes or their bodies, a stronger roof over their heads, freedom from the clutches of the corrupt officials and the grabbing intermediaries, and speedier justice. But what have we done? Have we been able to satisfy those expectations? I can say no. Even in the third 5-year plan, we find that all the villages have not been provided with adequate supply of drinking water and as for food. Only the other day, the finance minister himself admitted in the other house that there was adulteration of foodstuffs all round. No, only that a former health minister admitted in this house that it was difficult to get any article of food adulterated. Then what is the use of talking about pure food articles and of other health facilities when the people are getting articles which are as good as poison? They are injurious to health. The other day, the finance minister is reported to have said that the taxation proposals did not affect the common man because he needed only coarse clothes and ordinary food. During the last 5 years, we have raised rupees 4 to 4 crores more, including the taxation measures. This year, the increase in revenue will be about 75%. Since 1956, we have raised additional taxation to the tune of 75%, and during the 5 years preceding this year, the revenue expenditure has gone up by 85%. I would like to know how much of this amount has gone towards developmental expenditure and towards social services. Ready? Start. Sir, I rise to support the demands that have been placed before the House by the Home Minister. Sir, I need not remind the House that this year the Home Ministry's demands are being discussed in a context which can be described as almost unexplained. It is for the first time that we are discussing the demands of this ministry after the country passed through the period of the emergency that rocked the very basic structure of our constitution and our policy and made the common people of our country realize what they have lost with the eclipse of their fundamental rights and freedom. Para. Sir, the 19 months of rule marked the culmination of a concerted effort to undermine democracy. Those who wanted to destroy the democracy and convert our system into a totalitarian system had looked upon the Home Ministry as the main instrument for forcing their bill on the nation. They wanted to substitute the rule of law with a reign of terror to place individuals above the law, to provide immunity to those whom the group liked, and to harass all those who were looked upon as dangerous to the monopoly of power that the extra constitutional caucus wanted to preserve. The then Home Minister was himself a captive of this caucus. It was practically a totalitarian regime and was therefore bound to be a police regime. That is why I would request the Home Minister that the whole police department should be thoroughly overhauled. Para. Sir, I do not want to take the time of the house by listening the various agencies and organizations that were set up in the police department and the home department during emergency, and before that I also do not want to take the time of the house in describing the fabulous amounts of money that had been placed at the disposal of RAW and other agencies. Even the money was placed at the disposal of certain individuals, and that was exempted from the scrutiny of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India or the Parliament. I do not want to go into all these details, but I would only request the Home Minister to go into these things and ensure that such things do not happen in future. Under the circumstances, sir, the task of the Home Minister is therefore one of dismantling the police state that was built up by the previous government. Full stop.